This is Brandalyn Morris. I hope she's okay if I say this, but she's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
a sister to me. I watched her heal from withdrawal. I helped her during the process and how confusing it was. And I have just watched her blossom into this wonderful woman who is now a college student, which she thought she would never get to.
Mhm.
So, welcome, Brandalyn.
Hi, everybody. Hi,
Um,
Angie.
Hi. Okay, so let me read your bio really quick just so that people
Okay.
that don't know you can learn about you. But there is two other videos on Facebook, I'm sorry, on YouTube, on our YouTube channel about Brandalyn. So you can hear more of her story and see some of her progress and see her today. We've kind of done one like once a year, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
So here's her background. Brandalyn Morris draws on 25 years of lived experience with psychotropic medications through taking, tapering, and recovering from their effects. Having been off these drugs for 2.5 years, she is now pursuing a bachelor's degree in behavioral neuroscience at Grand Valley State University. Brandalyn is actively involved in undergraduate research focusing on psychiatric iatrogenic injury and neuroregeneration. That is a mouthful. In addition to her academic work, she is a former peer support specialist certified in the state of Michigan. She facilitates the Antipsychotic Tapering Support Circle, serving as a supportive guide who is successfully deprescribed and is now thriving and fully re-engaged in life. Welcome, Brandon.
Angie, it's good to see you.
You too. I wish it was in person, but here
I
we
know, right? I
are.
wish I was in California. That'd be awesome.
It's rainy. You don't want to be here right now. Anyway, so let's start off. We have a couple topics we're gonna in the first one,
Okay,
just to get
first,
us
wait, because first I need to like update on March 23rd. Actually, I just looked at my calendar. It will be no longer 2.5 years, but 3 years off. So I am like less than 2 weeks away from 3 years.
it's been a long journey. I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
So good. Okay, so to get into some of our topics today, I do need a backdrop. And so Brandon is going to share just a little bit about what it's like being diagnosed with a serious mental illness, what it's like tapering antipsychotics herself, what that process was like, and what were some of the pitfalls or obstacles that you faced doing that. Can you share a little bit?
Holy moly. I mean, that's a lot. Like that's some serious stuff. Being diagnosed with a serious mental illness, it was odd the way it happened to me. Mine came on the heels of a drug reaction that was really profound. It was an adverse reaction to the antidepressant drug, Paxil. And I now know a gene that interacts with that particular drug, and I have a couple other things that made that a particular severe reaction. So what happened to me was basically I was going through a divorce. I had two little kids. I had very little money. I was stressed, not sleeping well, went to the doctor complaining of, the depression symptoms kind of thing, thinking I could get some help with sleep. And the reaction that I had was so fast that,
What was the
um,
reaction? Just share it if you can.
honestly, I became full on psychotic. Like I was like, it's weird to describe psychosis because psychosis is, it's like reality adjacent, at first.
As we laugh because we've experienced
Right,
it.
we've been there kind of thing. It
Not
is.
funny,
It's like
really,
it's
but
not for me, it wasn't like full on like, extreme thinking kind of thing. Especially not at first. I know like one of my sons, when I was describing what psychosis was like to him, he's like, well, is it like you see purple people or dinosaurs or something? I'm like, no, I would just like, I would see people I thought I knew. It was like kind of like that sort of thing. But it was like being asleep. It was like being asleep and you're having a dream and like something happens and it does not even strike you as weird that this thing is happening because of course, you're running into that person in the second grade who sat next to you on the bus. You know, it was so
ideas
it
really.
was so close to reality for me. I never saw anything that was like wildly bizarre. I just was kind of living my own dream state kind of thing. And so yes, because it was reality adjacent, I didn't recognize it as being psychotic. I think if I had seen the purple dinosaurs or something, I would have went, whoa, that
Yes.
kind of thing.
Right. So then what was
Right.
that like when they told you what your new diagnosis was?
Well, honestly, by that point, and this is only a couple months after I started the Paxil, like, I don't think I had the cognitive ability to know the difference. Like I was scared and I was stressed and I was all these things. And like I knew something was not right. I knew I had like basically lost the ability for like people stopped understanding me kind of thing. Like I would be having conversations at work or whatever. And you get that look from people like, ooh, and like, and you're going, okay, what is that about? Like that kind of thing. But it was enough to where I knew like something was weird. But I think you and I were talking earlier, like I was probably somebody who, that wasn't an uncommon kind of reaction. Like when I was a kid, like everybody's got that thing that makes them different or they think from everybody else. Like everybody's got their thing, whether it was, I'm too skinny, I'm too heavy, my, skin is the wrong color, whatever. Like, everybody's got their thing that makes them feel as though they're different. I think my granddaughter's cartoon, it's like Daniel Tiger and he has a tail and nobody else has a tail. I mean, it's just everybody's got their thing. And for me, like that thing, made me feel like I could talk about things I found like remarkably interesting, and other people were just looking at me like I'd grown a second head kind of thing. I was kind of a little bit of an egghead as a kid and that sort of thing, and had, not necessarily unusual interest, but unusual like level of knowledge for my age. That's
Mhm.
kind of how it was. And so I was kind of used to that sort of reaction. And so when it happened, like I hear so many times, it was kind of a relief to have kind of an explanation for it, sort of thing. And it didn't like I didn't understand even at that point any of the implications of that diagnosis. I think that's what the what psychosis like took from me was the ability to understand the implications of things. Like I could see them, I could experience them, but I sure couldn't make a whole lot of sense of them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think that diagnosis became an identity for you, or that you lived it out in some ways?
I think so, a little bit. I think it gave me like it made me feel like I went from being weird to being special in a way, kind of thing. And especially because, and this is something like, I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit, but like I think there's a part of me that wants to be have the yes, I have all these challenges, but look how great I'm doing kind of thing. Like I'm a little bit of you talked about being, an achievement oriented sort of thing. I'm very achievement oriented. It's like if you give me something, I will be the best at it. I will be that girl kind of thing. I will do it to its superlative. So
The best at your diagnosis
I
also.
would I wanted to be like
Wow.
I wanted to honestly like be the best functioning like human with psychosis ever. Like look at me, look at all this stuff I'm doing despite this diagnosis. It was like, it was I guess I don't know, it's just kind of weird, but that's how it was.
Interesting. Interesting. So earlier we talked about me and you before we got on this call. We were talking about what we're going to talk about today, and
Okay.
up a pretty controversial topic, and it's what is the difference between tapering an antidepressant or a benzo and tapering an antipsychotic? And first, let me say a disclaimer that I don't even think everyone should come off. Okay. It's a very difficult process. And especially if you have a history of extreme states, or you don't have the right support, or you are, can't function, or you live alone and you don't have social contact. There's a lot of reasons why people should not deprescribe. Okay. But that's kind of why I pulled apart the difference. We have a normal tapering group and we have an antipsychotic support group, because there's just this extra layer of
Mhm.
people with other serious mental illness or an history of an extreme state. And listen, people come to antipsychotics in all different ways. Okay. I have a group of women on them for sleep. They didn't tell them they were on an antipsychotic. They didn't even mention that. Okay. But because it's such a potent drug, it puts people to sleep at night. Okay. I have a group of people that they smoked a lot of marijuana. It sent them into an extreme state. They got put on antipsychotics that way. I have another group of people, they had extreme trauma and stress in their life. They could have experienced homelessness or oppression or racism or things like that. They get put on antipsychotics that way. There's other people that I think are just neurodivergent. They're a little different, but it doesn't mean they're mentally ill, but someone in their lives misunderstood them and they were put on for that reason. So there's lots of different reasons, but it seems to be a little bit different than the people on antidepressants that were like functioning and working a job and they just went through stress and they got put on antidepressant. Just some differences. So what do you think about the nuances, or how was it different for you, or how did you experience that? Can you
I mean, I don't know if I share your opinion that, the reasons why people shouldn't come off those, because honestly, like I had a lot of those conditions. Like I lived alone. I didn't have support. I didn't have, much. Like I had you and I had my one healing buddy, and that's it. Like, I was really, really isolated and really, really alone. But what I did have, honestly, was pandemic protection. Like I got to be isolated in my extreme state kind of thing, because I did go into an incredibly extreme state, especially that first year, because I didn't taper. I just discontinued cold turkey my antipsychotic. I think at that time, I think the antipsychotic that I discontinued was Risperdal. But I had been on pretty much all of them, like that were available up until 2000 or 2020. I'd been on everything from, Haldol to Clozaril to, all of the atypicals, and these things, I feel so hard for the people that came onto these, through basically a lack of understanding of their physician of the potency of these medications and prescribing them off label and things for sleep, like sleep, that is so, in my opinion, wildly inappropriate. Like, I would love to see the reckless and out of control prescribing behavior get curtailed somehow, but that's only my opinion. Um,
true?
but they are major tranquilizers. That's what they are. They're major tranquilizers. And through some work that I have done, like, in terms of like, I read white papers for fun. That's what I do because of the research and things that I'm doing, my school and all that kind of stuff. Like I'm doing a research proposal and saying that's my homework for this weekend. So I go through white papers a lot and I kind of enjoy them. So I was reading about, the reduced hippocampal volume that occurs with antipsychotics. And basically like that part of your brain, it shrinks a little bit and it affects your memory. So for me, that was a big part of this kind of thing, not having full access to my memory. Like things would happen. I would notice that they happened, and then they would just kind of like, dissipate into the ether kind of thing. Like I didn't hold on to that memory, and it didn't like now when something happens and things like that, I react to it and I think about it and I ponder it or whatever, and eventually you have to let things go. But when I was on antipsychotics, like things would dissipate so quickly, I never had a chance to really process them or make sense of them or anything like that. And so coming off from them, I would say honestly, I'm grateful for the cover of the pandemic, that I got to do it by myself, that I got to like get through that period without anybody doing a welfare check on me, without anyone really being actively involved in my life at that time, without any like day-to-day interaction of people that would have been concerned for my well-being during that time. I think there was probably cause why they might have been. I don't think I did anything particularly weird other than right up front. Like I think I told you, like that first 2 months, it was just like, yeah, I'm gonna get drunk. So that was my, not exactly great thinking, like emerging kind of thing. I was just like, I didn't really know what to do with myself. And so after that happened, I did spend like a summer in the hospital. And I probably almost ended up in an adult foster care home, except like some like residual memory in my past. Like um, I I was in college when I was prescribed medication, and I was taking at that time business administration. And one of the classes that I had taken was a business law kind of class. And I had a professor who like instructed us. He's like, no matter what happens, you always document things. Like, that's how you get through things. So when I was in the hospital and I kind of noticed like people were like doing things that were inconsistent, like and there was a gentleman who had a room next to me. It was like they were making a big deal of ignoring me. So like I would, kind of like comply with what they wanted and I would get the attention or whatever. And so I just started noting how many times they went into his room. And I just started noting like things people would say to me that, they would later try to say something else. And I was just, I was documenting things, and I left that notebook open on my desk so they could see that I was documenting things. And I think that's what saved me, like from being put into an adult foster care home, was
You
that
mean
I
like
had
the
to wear,
focus that you were just like focusing on something else?
I was, no, I had the wherewithal to say, this is not okay. Like they could not say to someone, this woman has such low cognition, she can't take care of herself. Because if I was taking care of myself at that level, I think they were not able to persuade a judge at that point that I needed care.
Something. Yeah. Whew. I'm just
Yeah.
thinking like someone said this to me once and it like made me laugh, but they were like, Angie, you're so well put together. There's no way you could have been diagnosed with serious mental illness. And I'm like, yeah, I did. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
you're seeing years of healing,
Were
back
you
then, huh?
were you ever like, given the psychotic diagnosis, or was it always PTSD?
What mine said was serious and persistent mental illness not likely to improve, chronic and severe.
Okay.
But I was also given bipolar and PTSD at a very high rating. So
Hmm.
basically, they treated me like you are in that other category.
Right. And same, like mine was schizoaffective disorder. That was my diagnosis. And I never really fully understood it. Like at the time, nobody ever fully explained it to me. I knew that it was like a special class of schizophrenia, which again, like my need to be
So,
special, man. It's just ridiculous. It's
but
a very
anyway,
head,
the
but
reason I brought that up is because you look, and looks are deceiving, like how well
right.
articulate and how good you're doing. But we're
But
talking about like me, I had dreadlocks in my hair. I did not leave the house for like 4 years at
right.
one point. I was on 18 medications at the same time. I was in and out of the psych ward. Do you want to share like how bad it was? Just
I was
that.
ridiculously bad, Angie. Like I lived on the streets for 2 years. I mean, and not like, like couch surfing or staying with friends. Like I lived in a tent colony and thought I was camping.
Yeah.
It was like I had no idea that there was anything wrong with it. I had no idea that my life impacted anyone else. I had no idea. Like, there are all these things that it didn't strike me as weird. Like, I remember, and I can look back because I have other videos and things that exist of me, of like news things that I had done or whatever. And like there's this one that I look at myself and there is just this blankness to me, like utterly blank. Like my eyes weren't like tracking in the same way. They were like focused in one direction and one on the top of my head or whatever. Like there was clearly something like not right with the person that I can see on that screen, who like has my voice,
Yep.
but that's like where the resemblance stops.
Yeah. That's scary.
It
See,
is. And I was a good like 100 pounds heavier. Like that was the first thing that happened to me when I, came off the antipsychotic, was like, oh, I lost 100 pounds without trying. So, it was there is a distinct night and day difference. And I still talk to a couple people that were actually outreach workers in that, where I used to live. And we've since, become like human friends and things like that, like, independent of all that sort of thing. And I was talking to one of them yesterday, and he's like, there is an absolute night and day difference between you then and you now. My other friend, she was like, I would see you surface occasionally. It was like I was on some sort of trampoline, and occasionally my head would rise above the water. She's like, and then you would just go back down. So there was some of that. I wonder if some of me was like reaching a particular level of tolerance or whatever. This is just me hypothesizing kind of thing, but it was like, was I like starting to acclimate to this sort of thing and then would become dysregulated and that kind of thing? I don't know, but she would say the you that I know now, my friend, is, occasionally I would see glimpses. So
you're speaking to something that I said a few times where when you're on 18 medications, you lose the ability to even know there's something wrong with that.
exactly. I
Like,
was 15, but yes.
yeah, so like you're speaking to you think you're okay. Also, medication spellbinding. You think you're fine. Everything seems okay, but like you don't even have a sense of really what is okay. Like you can't,
Exactly.
you're trapped in your own mind, but it's medication induced, but all the professionals around you are telling you that that's your mental illness.
Right. I mean, that's what I mean about it being reality adjacent. It's like, it didn't feel weird to me. It didn't feel weird in the state. It only feels weird in retrospect.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
No,
it,
I even look at pictures of myself and it's like I don't even recognize that person. Like I was
exactly.
someone else completely, and I don't even think this person was in there because I didn't have touch. I couldn't touch it, but I know she was in there,
Mhm.
but it's such a wild experience though, kind of what you're making me think about.
Yeah.
And we already like half an hour in. Let's like make it snappy here. Okay, thank you
Right,
for
right, right.
watching. Okay, so I want to talk about informed consent, and I also want to talk about like the nuances of tapering antipsychotics and maybe the amount of self-education that you had to do to understand what's happened to you since. So what do you want to share about like
Okay. So, let me do it, I guess, this way. So let's talk about nuance first, in that, like, I don't know, if I believe there is only one best way to do things. Like, I know that some people, choose different methods and that sort of thing to deprescribe psychiatric meds and things like that. I don't know if there is, a standard way that is best for everyone. I think everyone kind of has to pick their way through that landmine ridden kind of path and like find what's best for them rather than there being a prescriptive path that's best for everyone kind of thing. And so like I think you and I had talked about like with vaccines and things like that. Like that is a really big thing in the news and things like that. And, because like I kind of did like a duo degree sort of thing. Like I'm doing my degree is in behavioral neuroscience, but it's come down super heavy on cellular molecular biology. And so like I'm doing genetics classes, I'm doing cell classes, I'm, doing that kind of path. And like I work with RNA technology all the time. Like I study it, I use it in the lab, I'm familiar with it. And for me, it's a decision that I take vaccines and I, advocate for my children and grandchildren to have them. I don't know if that's right for everyone, but it's right for me and my family. Eh, But here's the thing. I do know this stuff, and I don't think, honestly, it should take 4 years of college and almost a bachelor's degree to be able to make that decision for oneself. I think that communication to patients when they're making high level decisions about their health needs to be presented in a way that meets them where they are so that they fully understand. Like the thing that I learned in college was not necessarily how things work, but enough to say, I do believe that, or I don't believe that. It's like you can immediately make the sort. It's like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. I'm not going to listen any further to this. Or this makes sense. I'm interested. I'm going to look more and know what to ask, know the questions to ask. That's the biggest thing. Like people don't know what to ask their
Yeah,
providers.
but knock, 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 devil's advocate here.
Yeah. So, go
The
for it.
education level of the average American citizen is probably like a ninth grade level. And if you have SMI as a diagnosis, serious mental illness, you're at the worst day of the worst part of your life asking for help.
Exactly.
And they would argue you don't have the ability to make a decision because we can't trust your insight because that's your mental illness. That's kind of what the system would say.
Right. And like I was having a conversation with one of my professors the other day and that sort of thing. And they said something to the effect of, well, you need to be really careful about what you say because these have helped so many. And I said to her, that's BS, and here's why. But I can do those kinds of things because I have the wherewithal to back it up. I think honestly, like if I were to combat the, whole problem, it would be we need to raise the education level. We need to raise the access that people have to scientific literacy. We need to raise it's like if I want to leave my money to something, like I don't have any right now, but what I'm saying is, hypothetically kind of thing, I would put it into some sort of education thing because people being denied the opportunity to know about themselves and the world that they live in is just, in my opinion, dead ass wrong. It's just wrong.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at. People should have the ability to know, and they should be taught how to know.
Right.
Scientific literacy is high on my list.
The other thing is, I often think about these problems when I'm driving. It's like, because I see so many different cultures and the way cities are and how friendly people are, or how much homeless is in an area, or how much crime or situations that are going on, whatever, as I drive. And I often think, psychiatry serves its purpose to where it's trying to manage groups of people that don't have support in one way or another, and there is a perceived dangerousness, and some of that has been misconstrued in the media and stigmatized about what people's experiences actually mean or what they are capable of or not. And so it is kind of like a way to manage people chemically, which I have problems with, obviously. But I don't think they're going anywhere, and I think they will be here probably until after I die before we even get that how much of a problem they can be. So it's like a band-aid on a lot of problems. You know what I mean?
Right,
I feel like
right.
that's not fair to people here. In my experience, let me just say it. In my experience, the people that are tapering antipsychotics that I've come across or met, and I am one, and you are one,
Mhm.
are some of the most tender, sensitive, loving, creative, caring people I've ever met.
I
And
agree. I
these drugs,
agree.
these drugs have a way of turning your light off completely.
Exactly.
Boom,
Exactly.
your light is off. That's what they're designed to do. That's what they do for many of us. I met a client. I'm going to keep it very um vague so to remove any identifying information, but I met a client on the road, went to their house, met with them in their living room, and I saw myself in that person because it was just like the blank stare, like just not even there. It kind of shook me a little because I was like, oh my gosh, I recognize myself in this person. And I
Exactly.
know how much of a struggle they have ahead of them if they want to get off these drugs or if they want to get on less, and just how dark and scary that experience can be,
Yes.
where they are mentally when they are in that state.
Right.
It scares me to see it. And
Right.
so to say that informed consent for deprescribing also, that you have to educate yourself, and if you are heavily medicated and don't even understand the side effects, or if that your doctor could help you come off, or your doctor
Right.
wants you to or help you to do something like that, um,
Right.
it's very tricky for many of us, like
Yeah.
how do you even give informed consent for an experience that you have no
Right.
idea of what it's going to be like?
And I was honestly like, I know you and I have talked about different places and we've learned about our education and things like that and how heavily they focus on SES sort of factors.
You have to explain that because they don't know that.
Okay, like socioeconomic factors and things like that, and how basically, like, if you are of a lower socioeconomic class, meaning you have less money, you're like, middle class or a working class or poor or things like that, that all of these things they feel like it's the soft bigotry kind of thing. It's like, oh, well, you're poor, so therefore you must A, B, C, and D. I think that's pretty it's
The
classist. It's classist crap. And if you believe as I do that socioeconomic status is kind of it's always been an analog for, other things that separate people in society and for the ways that they're categorized and that sort of thing. I'm not going to use, inflammatory language here, but what I want to say is in many cases, it is sexist, it is racist, it is all kinds of things. And it's
sanest.
done because in this way that it seems like it's caring and it's considerate and it's like, it's bigotry. It's these horrible things and you're not even recognizing this in yourself. it's terrible. It's terrible to
I
me. And
like
it's
I
so
like where
soft.
you're going. I like where you're going because I read this article. It was in Mad in America. It was a psychiatrist interview, and I gotta have to go find it because it was actually like a really famous, like well-known psychiatrist, very highly regarded. But he did some study where they went into psych wards and they asked all the nurses, like there was children being treated and they were living in abhorrent conditions, like urine and feces and like not being diaper changed and not being fed and a lot of crying. And it was just really bad, but it was almost as if the nurses and doctors had attuned to it and they just thought that was normal. So
Exactly.
they went into the hospital and they're like, do you see a problem with this? And the nurses and the doctors didn't. And then they brought the family members in to let them see it. And they were like, oh my God, what the hell is happening here? This is horrible.
Right.
So just, it sounds like you're making this argument for, which I actually like you're looking at the person. This is kind of a human rights thing that
It
people,
is. To
people,
me, it's very much a human rights thing.
yeah, the
Like,
people deserve an opportunity.
it's also eugenic if you look at it, because it's like, what exactly is the right way to think? What exactly is the right way to feel? And who gets to decide?
Right.
One of the things we had talked about earlier is that there is no like unifying kind of like, idea in psychiatry, like, that there's no unifying theory on which everything else is based. Like, and so everything is left up to the individual practitioner and like basically their opinion and like their life experience that they're making the best decisions they know how, but based on their own life experience, not my life experience. They have no idea what I went through. They have no idea, what my contextual issues are. And yeah, they can ask some basic questions and things like that to determine demographic information or how they would feel in my situation, but they don't know how I feel in my situation. That's where I think things go completely off the rails with this field of, science, or if you believe pseudoscience. It's that, there's no standardization. There's no kind of like bar or like, like this is the way
There is
we.
a bar. It's just imaginary. It's like,
That's the thing. It's
here's a
it's
bunch
it's
of
it's arbitrary.
yeah, it's subjective to the clinician's point of view. And if I could even argue while you were saying that, how uncomfortable I am with what you're telling me is what I'm going to do with that information. You know,
Right.
or like
Right.
how weird it is, or
Exactly.
way I see you through the lens that I carry is going to
Right.
determine what happens with you.
Exactly, because I mean, like, I go to school with people who tend to come from a privileged background, which um, is not currently what I live. And it's like sometimes I just want to, like, okay, like I've been selected as a McNair scholar and that sort of thing, and I'm doing all this other kind of stuff, and like I was like nominated for a department award. I didn't get it, but I was nominated, and I'm like, yep, that's not possible. It's like, what? And no, I'm from a lower SES. That can't be possible. I can't be smart. Like I can't be like, going places with my life. I'm poor. Like I can't, I mean, I just want to like do that sometime and like put that in their face and say, you want to think that like all the way through? Could you think that thought all the way through, please? It's like, I mean, it's insulting. It's insulting in so many ways. As I'm sitting in my classes and hearing these things and going, yeah, they're talking about me. I've got a perfect score on my ACEs, by the way. It's like, yeah, that's not possible. It's just like, um that low key, like soft bigotry kind of thing. It's like, oh, I'm better than you, therefore I know better because I have more money, or
Yeah.
I have this, or I have
Or
that.
just
It's
I'm
not
more
right.
normal than you and I have education to determine your destiny through diagnosis and treatment. It's tough.
Exactly.
Okay, I have a question because I'm seeing who's in the audience because I'm watching the names, so I remember
Right.
the names. So I want to ask a question that we did not discuss before this meeting, but I'm curious about your thoughts on when I see someone who's tapering an antipsychotic, one of the struggles that they have is they are scared of experiencing that again.
Yes.
And there's some unlearning that has to happen about like what is that or what exactly happened when that happened to me. How do I prevent that from happening? I talked to someone recently that said I had a checklist, so I have to check every single day. Did I sleep? Did I eat? Did I get social connection? Am I talking to my mother and father? Am I seeing friends? Am I working? Like every day they go through that checklist to
Did
make
that.
sure that they are self-caring enough not to go off the deep end because they have a tendency of doing that before, okay? And that keeps them safe. And so
Right.
I can think of another person that it's very tied to their sleep. If they're not sleeping, it's a warning sign, you know?
Mhm.
So, um, and I'm gonna say it as I feel it. I do feel a little uncomfortable talking about this because I don't ever want someone who's deprescribing to get themselves in more trouble or to get
Exactly.
locked up or to get, so it is a little bit inherently different than antidepressants or benzos based on your history or how you got that label in the first place or what you were medicated with. And there's also the
Right.
added complication of a dopamine drug and the way that that could change the brain that we don't even know about all the way, that could make you
Exactly.
prone to extreme states in some ways. Okay. So
Right.
it's just like so careful. And Brandon, let's just say it. Me and you could be outliers that we got off
Right.
and we didn't experience that again, or we did in a certain way, but it was measured and we were able to care for ourselves. We are an
Right.
exception, not the rule necessarily. So I'm just
Right.
be very nuanced about this, that
Right.
it's a careful thing. And I do think you need as much support and medical support, if possible, to help you with that because it's such a complex situation for most of us.
Right. I would say that I too had a checklist. Like I had, honestly, it came from a partial hospitalization program. And it was like, okay, these are your 20 coping skills or whatever. And for a while, I was pretty religious with that list. Um, I did a ton of walking. And honestly, like a cognitive impairment was one of my best friends in this, in that I didn't like, I had been inside of myself, like living in kind of my own little world. I think you and I've joked about it. Like I called it Brandy Land kind of thing. It was like, and I walked and I walked and I walked and I walked and I walked. And I was just kind of like, I was telling myself I was walking it off. And that was like, I kind of had a healing mindset, it was kind of like what it was like, I just thought if I was doing something that eventually, like I just trusted that eventually it would fall off. Like, and it did, and it was gradual. I think I might have mentioned it. It was like I was walking outside and it was like all of a sudden I looked up and it was snowing. And it was the first thing I had noticed outside of myself in a couple decades. And it was like, it's snowing. And like I just stood there for a minute, like just in awe and amazement. And then it was like a while later, it was like I tasted sriracha. Like I put sriracha on my food because I'd seen other people doing it. I didn't really know what it tasted like though until one day it was just like, oh my gosh, this is really yummy. But like, it was like those sorts of things would happen. For me, it wasn't going backwards, it was moving forward, which was really interesting. It was like the things that I became afraid of and things were actually things that I had just like rounded the corner on. Like I didn't become aware of them until they were kind of like starting to go away. So the things that I was afraid of were actually things that I had, like hurdles that I had already cleared. I just didn't recognize that I had cleared them yet, which
Wow.
was interesting because and then it was just like, and then you notice enough of those things happening that you can start to like chart your progress. So it was really gradual and things like that. But the things that I was afraid of, if I was aware of them, chances are I was already healing from them, or I was close to healing from them.
And that's a common experience when people are coming off all meds is they start to like, oh my God, Angie, I saw the sunset for the first time. Why don't people stop in traffic and look at that? It's so beautiful.
Exactly. Exactly. Like, snow, like who'd have thought? Like, or hot sauce, just, the normal everyday run of the mill things. And I was in awe. Like it was like I was like looking at a mountain or the ocean for the first time. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing, huh? Lots of healing and self-discovery that happens. So let's talk about that really quick. What do you think the benefits are of tapering antipsychotics, including using a harm reduction approach?
What are the benefits of tapering or of being off from them?
Let's say both, because I want to include harm reduction always. Like
Okay.
if you're
So
on,
like I think honestly, I didn't taper antipsychotics. I tapered other medications, but that was the one I just threw in the trash and went never again.
don't recommend that. Please don't do
Yeah,
that.
we don't,
Do that. Do that.
but like for me, it was like, I think my healing might have like taken longer because I did that. But I feel like honestly, like stepping away from the medications, I'm just going to put psych medications in this spot, in this placeholder, like stepping away from them, whether I was, and making up my mind foolishly not to take them anymore, or to, to do something a little like less destructive and do them gradually, I think everything brought me a little closer to a me that I remembered. And I've mentioned this in other groups and stuff because I kind of like stalk some of your other coaches and things like that and frequent their groups. And it's like, for me, I didn't necessarily like, I never got the me back that walked into the psychiatrist's office or walked into my family doctor's office and asked for an antidepressant. I never returned to that person, and I'm really glad about that because I didn't like her very much. But like the me that like I noticed on the way back through the healing and things like that, it was like, you, I know you. Like, you're the girl who used to ride her bike like all over the place in the neighborhood. And like, used to take that jump and like, make the boys like all impressed and stuff like that. It was that, like all of the stuff, like the socialization and the wear and tear of life had stripped from me. All of the things that like the world had told me were not okay about me. Like all of those things fell away, and I returned to what one of your other coaches calls caveman settings.
That's what I
Like
call it.
I got to be,
I call it.
well, I borrowed it from her,
Love
but like
it. Okay.
I get to be me again. Like that is the best part of this whole process, is all of the crap that the world told me, all of the things that I believed to be true about myself that were never true. Like I was just fine. I was good. In fact, I was great, and I liked me. And the coolest thing about doing this, about reducing or coming off psychiatric medications, I like myself in a way that most people can't say they do. And I get to be the exact me I've always wanted to be, which is the me I showed up as.
Love that. That's beautiful. And we all deserve a chance at that.
Yeah. I think that like, I don't know if this is right for everyone. I know it was right for me. I know that I've
And I will
never
say
been more
that,
grateful for anything in the world than this.
well, and I will say you did not know that this was going to happen. You took a lot
No,
of
I didn't.
chances. Oh, you went against a lot of things, and people would have said, no, you're freaking homeless. Are you crazy?
Exactly.
You're going to
Ex
throw your meds in the trash? That could land you in jail, Brandalyn.
exactly. I know. I could have been on the business end of a needle full of Clozaril my whole life. I could have been. For me though, it was like I didn't see the danger. I didn't. I'm glad I didn't see that danger, because I might not have done it though. I think it's one of those processes you have to trust, and you have to like look to the people who have done it, not as like instructional guides, but as mentors, like if you want this, you can get there kind of thing.
Yeah, and so let's put a disclaimer there too, that there's lots more safer tapering strategies nowadays
Yes,
offered by Mark Horowitz's paper. We will put it in the chat and in the caption
right,
of the video about how to safely taper antipsychotics. Joanna
right,
Moncrief has the radar study, which I actually was critical about because the rate at which she tapered people off in that study was too fast. And she
right,
told me herself that it was because of funding. They had to speed up the study. So even the study was too fast for people tapering antipsychotics. So
right,
I do advocate for safer tapering. If you're going to do that, you need medical support, you need family support, you need social support, you need peer support, you need everything you can get to help you through the
right,
process, and including all the other drugs too. It's not just antipsychotics. You know what I'm saying?
right.
Just be careful with any doctor who tries to take you off this very potent stuff quickly.
Exactly,
That
exactly. And like, yeah, and if anybody like tries to, give you a medication and says, this will work for you, I'm not sure that I would take it until I had investigated it. I know that a lot of people don't have the wherewithal, which is, I think, where those supports come in really handy. Like, if you have someone in your life that you trust that can go with you and like, and better understand what's being said, or ask the higher level questions than you might be capable of, or whatever. Like, I think like a medical advocate, if that of your choosing, that you trust, would be really helpful with people coming off antipsychotics, especially because of the things that happen. It's like it changes how you perceive things. I think that's what we've been talking about in terms of the reality, or the reality adjacent sort of thing. It changes the way that you think about things, it changes the way you perceive things, and it changes the way you feel about things in imperceptible ways to yourself. So if somebody loves you, if you love and trust that person, and they truly do have your best interest in mind, and this is not, everyone who you trust, not everyone you trust has your best interest in mind. But if you can find someone you do like feel that with, and like, you had talked about going to the doctor with your sister and things like that, and being able to look at medications that were being used for convenience and saying, yeah, that's not necessary. And advocate for them in a way that people that are wanting to discontinue or are discontinuing antipsychotics cannot advocate for themselves. I think that is probably one of the strategies I so would endorse and wish I would have had for myself.
Yeah. Very sensitive topic.
It is, it is.
The,
I mean, I will say that I've never been more grateful for anything in the world than recovering from them, though. And that by whatever, way you choose to do it, if you're here, you're not satisfied with it. So whether it's harm reduction or whether it's deprescribing, I like I totally endorse everyone doing what they feel is right for themselves.
I like that. So we should end in just a minute because my battery on my computer is dying and I don't want to bend over to plug it in right now. But before we go, I have two more questions. So one
Okay.
question as quick as we can. We definitely think that there's something different about you, Brandalyn, because you recovered so quickly from all the medication
Yeah.
history that you have been through. So what do you think in your studying and your own lived experience? What is going on?
So,
What's the difference between me and you? Because we were on almost the same amount of medications and the same kind
right.
for the same
Yeah.
time, but I took years to recover and you did not.
Okay, so doing this genetic study and things like that, I think that we all kind of have the same stuff in our chromosome. Like we all have like something that codes for eye color. We all have something that codes for hair color, but they're different. And I think like for some reason, like something in my genome, either I have something or I lack something. And I think like, and this is why I'm doing the research that I am. Like I just was able to I have a researcher who's going to be supervising my undergraduate research. And they study a protein that is actually like involved in neurogenesis in the brain, like new neurons being born, kind of thing. It's kind of like a precursor to those neurons. It's something that like builds them, like before, kind of thing. And I think, gosh, what if it is something so simple, like that is like that I have or that I lack, that could be shared with others. It's like that's kind of like where I'm at with this. It's like, what if it's just, that what I needed was a methylated B vitamin, like with the one MTFHR
Yeah.
gene or something like that. Or what if it's, I know that when I had a genetics test done to try to help me determine what happened to me, and I understand myself better that way. But I know that's not accessible to everyone. But one of the things that I learned from that testing is that smoking can impact the way that your genes either are expressed or silenced, which means either they're like being like, they're either off or on in colloquial terms. And so, like, it's like, what if it's something as simple as, yeah, you need the fluoride removed from your water? Or, what if it's something that simple and like I could like share what I've learned about myself with everyone and like everybody could, be able to benefit from that knowledge. So I think it's something in my genome and that it's probably a real simple thing like, okay, well, your ground soil lacked this. So it's like you need to take it in a supplement form. And it's just, you know, I think I'm not even sure I believe that mental illness is real. I believe that human suffering is real completely, but I don't see illness. I see injuries. And I think injuries can heal. So I want to be a part of the solution and that sort of thing. So whatever, pixie dust got sprinkled on me that I was able to heal as well and as quickly as I was, I feel like I want to get that out to other people so that they too can get, they can heal to the best of their ability and become whoever it is that you know, that they have in mind that they want to be and like do with their lives what they want and not be enslaved to medications or therapies or all of these things that make us feel about ourselves in a reduced way. I think we all deserve the fullest expression of our humanness.
Agree.
I love you, Angie.
Love you. It also makes me think of a woman that I met in a screening in Boston for medicating normal. It was like 5 years ago. And she stood up in the audience and she said, I have the diagnosis of schizophrenia and I've had so much trauma in my life. The only thing keeping me on this planet is my medications. And I I totally agree with her and understand her point of view. So even what you just said, I still advocate for informed choice and that
I do
people
too.
make the best choices for what they're up against. There is enormous amounts of trauma in our world.
Right.
And it makes me sick, honestly. I just swallowed hard because when I think about some of the traumatic things that have happened to people that I know, God love them. I get it why you're on a medication and you need that. So I don't
Right.
want to take that from people either. Okay. And
Right.
but that does not come without consequences that we should be aware of when we're given them.
I agree. And that's what I'm saying, and I'm going to go on to do this at, in graduate school. I have no idea where I'm going to grad school. I know what I want to study because it is this. It is when people have been injured this way, how do we help them? How do we help them restore themselves to whole? It's like if that person who had experienced such trauma, I get that. Like I said, I have a perfect 10 on my ACEs score. Like I am in the in the basement of the socioeconomic scale right now. And yet I'm thriving and like so engaged in life and being able to do all of the things that I've always dreamed of. I want others to at least have an opportunity to select that for themselves. That's what I want,
Beautiful. Thank you for saying it like that.
of course.
Oh, okay. That was very satisfying. We went in many places I didn't expect, but it came out really great. It was actually one of my favorite conversations we've ever had.
I love talking to you.
But
I do.
honestly,
I do.
but honestly, I have to say this. I hope you're not embarrassed by this, but because I've known you through the whole process,
Right.
you are the clearest, most articulate, most thoughtful, most empathetic you've ever been. It's fucking
Angie,
beautiful.
Angie, I mean, I love that. Honestly, like this year, can I say honestly, like this year, my anger fell away. It did. It was just like, I don't know what happened to it between August and now, because I think that's when we did the last thing. Like my anger just dissipated. And it's not like anything really weird happened or anything like that. It's just that all of a sudden it's just, and that has like cleared like me to be like to embrace the empathy, to see other people, to really engage fully and think of others in a way that I haven't been able to in a long time because it's, being in a psychotic state is a really kind of like self-focused thing. And I don't feel that that's where I'm at anymore. My relationships are really rich and like my experience and engagement with others feels just so satisfying and real. And I love it. I just love it.
Amazing. You got yourself back
I
against all.
did. I did. I got me back. I got
I'm
I
like,
got the
oh,
old me back.
oh, yes, you did. You got it back. Oh, such a gift.
I love it. I love it. I'm
All
so
right.
grateful. I'm so grateful for your help in getting here, Angie, because I mean, honestly, you and my healing buddy, Eric, you guys were my people for a long time. That's all I had.
I'll
And
still
I
remember
am
the
so
email you sent
grateful.
me. Do you think I should go to school while I have intense withdrawal? I'm like, yeah, if you think you can do it, because it'll give you something to focus on. And you
Right.
barely write a paper, but you did
Yeah,
it.
you told me I was like Phoebe. Like,
Oh my God. I have so much
but I'm
respect.
grateful. I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful. And honestly, like I want to in my facilitating the group to be the person who just holds this space long enough for somebody to heal and get themselves back to I'm here for you guys. So
So can you share that really quick before we hang up? When is the group? What do you
the
do?
group is every other Wednesday. Our next one is coming up, I believe, on the 19th of March. It is from 5 to 6:30 Eastern time. Although I would like to talk to you about like maybe making it like a schedule adjustment so that it would be a weekly thing, but for a shorter time period so that more people could attend and that sort of thing. But it is starting to catch on and like people are like starting to be return people and things like that. And I just love it. I just love this space and the people that come visit me and like watching them heal and watching them like realize things about themselves and like selfishly, like it is I get to, to see where I was when I started, and like, just share in that community and that sort of thing, because I think there are very few people who can, like, to be in that space, and truly understand. And I love that we can all do that for each other in that space. So it's really, really great. It's really, really great.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for continuing to serve.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you everybody for watching. If you're watching from YouTube, the replay, please hit subscribe or comment or like so that other people can see this video, because that's just the way freaking YouTube works. I don't like it, but that's how it works. Okay. Everybody else, thank you, and continued healing to all of you, and hang in there. I know this is a tough process, but as you can see, there is gifts all over, sprinkled throughout and at the end, that we all look forward to. So thank you. All right. Everybody have a good day.
Bye. Thanks, Angie.